A wise old owl sat in an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. So let's be like that wise old bird. Now, we have learned that in the riverlands of Israel, in a town called Jerusalem, a religion was started. Now, this pasture and riverland is the place where Jesus started his teachings to begin the religion of Christianity. But surrounding these riverlands is a desert, and this city of Jerusalem, surrounded by desert, is located just north of the Red Sea. Now, we've also heard of the country of Egypt, with its wide, red, sandy deserts. It is located on the west side of the Red Sea. And if we follow across the Red Sea to the east side, is a country that we know today as Saudi Arabia. And there is another desert there, wide and far, spreads as far as the eye can see. And in that country of Saudi Arabia is a town or city called Mecca. Now, Mecca is considered the holiest city for those who practice Islam. Now, in Saudi Arabia, the land is harsh, it's inhospitable. In the middle, it has a high plateau with rocks and sand and desert called the An-Nafud. And in the day, the sun scorches the ground. It is so very hot. But in the night, the temperatures get almost down to freezing. It is cloudless in Saudi Arabia, unless there is a billowing sandstorm wind that swirls the sand all around and makes it feel like a sandblaster hitting you with tiny pieces of sand hurting your skin. Now, this lifeless, barren land is called the desert Rub al-Khali. And as you look, if you were standing in the middle of that desert, all you could see were rolling hills of sand and heat as far as the eye can see. Now, there also is some oases in this large desert, and those are often where cities and villages and towns show up. Now, these may have palm trees, there would be water that is close to the surface and you could build a well. But in between these oases, there are many miles of hot and scorching desert. Now, near the Red Sea, you're more likely to get rain, and so oftentimes that's where the cities are. And two very famous cities in Saudi Arabia would be Mecca and Medina. Now, around these cities and other cities, villages grow up and they have farmers. And so they grow dates and pomegranates, peaches and figs. They grow lemons and bananas and oranges. They may grow grain and vegetables, and oftentimes there are animals like cattle and sheep around these villages and farms. Now, in the early Middle Ages, most of the people in Arabia were nomadic herders, and these Arabian nomads were called Bedouins. Now, they would take their sheep and cattle from one oasis to the next, and an important animal to them besides their herd are camels. Now, the camels allow for them to carry lots of things with them, and the camels are very hardy for the desert. They are made just for this type of landscape, for they can go without water for 5 days. So if you're imagining going from one oasis to the next and having to carry all the water you need with you, not having to have water for your horses would be a huge savings. Now, in the winter time, those camels could go 30 days without water, and so they were useful all year round. Now, the people also depended on their cattle for other things. They would use their milk to make cheese, and they would use their dung for fuel for their fire. If the camel died, they would have a large feast. So these animals were a huge part of the Bedouin culture. And not only did they help herders, they also helped traders, because traders could pack all of their goods on the camels' backs and could transport them across the deserts. Now, in Saudi Arabia, the most prominent religion is Islam, and Islam means obedience or submission. But there are other places that also favor Islam. Countries in Northern Africa, countries in Asia, the country of Turkey. Many places have Islam as their main religion. Now, I'm going to tell you the beginning of the story of how Islam started. Back in 570, in the city of Mecca, a little boy was born, and he was named Muhammad. Now, he was born to very poor parents, and when he was young, both of his parents died. But his very kind uncle, named Abu Talib, took him in and raised him from a boy. Now, while he was with his uncle Talib, he would help with his cattle and his sheep and his camels. And as he got bigger, he was allowed to go on trading journeys with his uncle as well, and he would ride a camel, and soon he became an excellent camel driver. Now, another thing about Muhammad is that he was a very faithful and